Welcome to this session called Advancing Equity Through Cooperative Procurement. I'm Tammy Rhymes, the Executive Director for the National Cooperative Procurement Partners, also known as NCPP. We're North America's exclusive association in regards to cooperative purchasing. Now, through that relationship with NIGP, we've signed an MOU where we will sponsor and provide educational content on both this virtual conference as well as NIGP Forum in-person conference in Boston. This particular session is offered through one of our affiliate members, CoProcure. And I want to introduce the moderator who's going to serve throughout this session with her two panelists. Becca Blazak has been working in the intersection of government and technology and nonprofits for the better part of 10 years. She got her start in Code for America, where she saw the impact of improving technology for local governments. Since then, she's partnered with the state level government in Australia to improve legal aid technology and helped build a nonprofit organization. In her role at CoProcure, she works closely with public entities to ensure they have a seamless search experience and creates new opportunities for public procurement professionals such as yourself to learn from and collaborate with each other. She also has two panelists with her to provide real-world examples. From the former CPO from the state of Maine, we have Mike Wenzel. And then from a very large county in California, Orange County, California, we have Maria Agrusa. So welcome, and Becca, take it away.
Thanks so much, Tammy. Hi, everyone. As Tammy mentioned, I'm Becca Blazak, and I manage partnerships and community at CoProcure. And I'm really excited to be joining for this session as part of the Cooperative Procurement track at NIGP Forum this year. We've got a great conversation teed up for you today with some really excellent panelists. And before we get into our conversation, I do want to share a little bit more context about CoProcure since it directly relates to finding more cooperative contracts. So if you're not familiar, CoProcure is a free resource for discovering cooperative and piggybackable language contracts. We like to call these collaborative contracts. It's sort of an umbrella term to cover all of the different types of contracts that you can use to make a purchase from national purchasing cooperatives, as well as states and local government entities, because this is what you can find on CoProcure. You know, in our personal lives, we have a lot of really amazing technology that helps us make buying decisions, from ordering takeout to booking a flight or finding a place to sleep. But when it comes to the public sector, where we're spending way more money on way more urgent purchases on behalf of our communities, we don't see that same free technology available. And we just don't think it should take you hours of internet searches and phone calls and emails to your public procurement peers to find a contract that you can use. And that's why we're building CoProcure, to help you save time discovering collaborative contracts all in one place. And we think it's really important that this is totally free for public procurement teams. At CoProcure in general, we are just striving to provide the free technology that can empower that spirit of collaboration that already exists within the public procurement profession, and really help procurement teams achieve greater purchasing transparency, efficiency, and inclusion by using technology. As Tammy mentioned in my intro, I have spent my career working at the intersection of tech and government, and I do think personally, government technology is one of the most overlooked but exciting places to drive impact and innovation. And that's really why I joined CoProcure, to work on this unique opportunity to create ease and efficiency for public procurement professionals, but also to increase economic opportunity for small and diverse businesses, and therefore improve public outcomes for our communities. And so on that note, I want to tee up our conversation for today. I've spent about a year and a half now learning about the public procurement ecosystem and everybody in it and the way that you all do your work. And one of the things that I've seen when it comes to working with more local and diverse businesses is that everybody is starting to talk about this a lot more and is really excited about the opportunity to do it. However, cooperative procurement and supporting local and diverse businesses can often feel like they're at odds with each other, because it feels like it's easy and efficient to use a cooperative contract, but we don't know necessarily. I see a lot of folks struggling to figure out how to do that with more local and diverse businesses, and feeling like the best way to do that is to go out to bid. On CoProcure, as I've noted, there are a lot of different contracts from a lot of different sources. Over 60,000 active cooperative contracts are actually on our search engine right now. A third of those contracts have at least one supplier with a diversity status, and a quarter of the suppliers on CoProcure today have one or more diversity credential. And you can actually easily find these using diversity filters, which we'll see a little bit later in our conversation. So, now that we know that maybe these two things are not so much at odds with each other, I want to tee up what our conversation is going to look like today with Maria and Mike. So, today the three of us are going to dig into a couple different tactics that we think public procurement professionals can use to meet equity goals through cooperative procurement. So those three tactics we're going to talk about are how to discover existing contracts from diverse suppliers today, how to push to have your local businesses included when you work with large vendors or national cooperatives, and how adding cooperative and piggybackable language to your contracts can help generate business for more local and diverse suppliers in your communities. So Maria and Mike are going to bring a lot of great examples and a lot of great experience to this conversation. And so to kick us off, I'd love for you each to introduce yourselves, share a little bit more about who you are, the agency that you're with, and why you're excited to have this conversation today. Maria, how about you kick us off, and then Mike, you follow.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Grusa. I've been in government contracting for over 20 years now. I started my career in aerospace at Raytheon for about 7 years in foreign and domestic defense contracts. I've now been at the County of Orange in procurement for 16 years, and I've been in my current role of County Procurement Officer for over 18 months now. I oversee 24 departments with about 250 deputized procurement professionals. And being such a large agency and the fact that we're also decentralized has made sharing contracts very difficult and more of an issue than you would think. So since taking this position, I've been trying to drive an increase in cooperative contracting internally and externally to create efficiencies and cost savings, as well as to somehow better support our local and diverse vendors. But until recently, I really struggled with finding a mechanism to assist in these efforts. So I'm really excited to share our recent accomplishments in collaborative procurement today.
Thanks, Maria. Mike, jump on in.
Thank you, Becca. My name is Mike Wenzel. I'm the former Chief Procurement Officer for the state of Maine, and I'm now serving as the ARPA Procurement Director for the state of Maine. Relative to this session right here, previously I served as the Northeast Regional Coordinator for NASPO Value Point, one of the larger cooperatives. And what I'm excited about, because I am a procurement geek, I look at contract portfolios. And when you add diverse suppliers to your contract portfolio, not only do you make your portfolio more resilient, I also think it helps you develop a more innovative portfolio. So in light of that, with CoProcure, it easily helps you access all kinds of cooperative agreements and niches you would never think you could find. So thank you, Becca.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I like that you added just like a low-key fourth tactic in here is, drive your innovation by working with more local and diverse vendors. Okay, so before we dig into the specific tactics for advancing equity through collaboration, I'd love to just talk a little bit more generally about the benefits of cooperative procurement. I think we probably have a lot of different folks joining us for this conversation who are at sort of different parts of their journey with cooperative procurement. So Maria and Mike, can you just share a little bit more about, how you all have benefited from cooperative procurement and why cooperative procurement is important to have as part of your overall purchasing strategy?
Yeah, so shortly after taking this position, I was asked to brief our Board of Supervisors on our procurement strategic goals in this position. So as I did this, I had mentioned to the board, one of my long-term goals was to create an alliance consisting of all 34 Orange County cities, and we'd all come together to collaborate in procurement. We're all procuring the same goods, for the same services, under the same constraints, so why not eliminate the duplication of efforts and take advantage of our consolidated buying power, as well as ensuring that we remain focused on supporting local and diverse businesses, which is very important to our Board of Supervisors. The board loved this idea so much that they turned this long-term goal of mine into a very, very short-term goal. They wanted it kicked off immediately. They took me on a roadshow to brief all of the city managers and city mayors, which was a great thing because it kind of kicked off our efforts from the top down, which is always helpful because now I had people ask me, when is this going to kick off? And so I had engagement from the get-go. But I was off and running trying to figure out how I was going to make this work, but I didn't have a platform. So luckily, there was a local procurement conference in Pasadena that was upcoming. So I made it my mission to go to each of the trainings and identify a solution, which is where I found CoProcure. They were just as excited about it as my board and as I was. So at the conference, we immediately started developing this platform of CoProcure. So I had that, the platform kind of checked off. Now I had to figure out how to get the buy-in internally. So I didn't have a lot of understanding nor support internally from our legal or our end users or our procurement staff on the value of procurement. So I had to go out and really explain the difference between collaborative, cooperative procurement. Collaborative is more of all of us piggybacking. Cooperative is more of utilizing the larger entity contracts, cooperative contracts. So just educating everyone, creating the buy-in. Then I had to go, next step was to create policy where everyone had to include all of the required language in their solicitations and their contracts to allow piggybackable contracts and utilization of these collaborative and cooperative contracts. So that has been kind of my journey today. A few months ago, we launched our OC Procurement Alliance. We were able, CoProcure was so amazing. They got our platform ready, and I think it was 5 to 10 business days, Becca. We launched our Procurement Alliance. The board, the mayors, the city managers were ecstatic. The cities were completely engaged. We had full attendance, 34 cities. And we have begun really focusing on collaboration and cooperative purchasing. But it was quite a journey.
Yeah, and it's been really exciting to work on that partnership with you, Maria, and the rest of the team at Orange County. And we're going to share some more examples for how that partnership has actually led to working with more local and diverse and supporting more local and diverse businesses as well. But I heard a lot of benefits in there and what you sort of shared around just in general when we think about cooperative procurement, collaborative procurement, why this is beneficial for agencies. So I heard a lot of time savings mentioned in there. I heard you mention, reducing those duplicative efforts and increasing buying power. Mike, I'm curious from your perspective too. You've been in the procurement game for a long time. When it comes to cooperative procurement, why is this something that agencies should be thinking about in general when it comes to their overall purchasing strategy?
Well, first of all, I'm enthralled by Maria's story. It's lovely. It is the basis of cooperative procurement. It really is grassroots, best practice, state-of-the-art kind of work for a procurement official. So great job, Maria. It's a lovely story. I like to think of it in 3 domains, essentially, when you talk about it. And I'm really a short kind of keep it simple guy. So, it's all about leverage. It's all about leveraging 3 things: procurement staff, spend, and expertise. Add anything else you want. But really, we're all stretched for procurement staff. It's really hard to get them, and they're attriting at a huge rate because of the silver tsunami. So that's an issue. Spend, little entities, even the state of Maine, which I would call next to Orange County a little entity. We have trouble with spend. So we need cooperatives are essentially our life's blood. And expertise. I don't think any of us have an expert in all the categories that we bid. It's very difficult. So if we talk procurement staff, spend, and expertise, cooperatives are kind of the procurement vehicle you want. And that's my thought on leveraging cooperatives.
And if
go ahead.
If I could add on that, Becca, that is kind of how I created the buy-in. So when you're out there trying to sell this to your organization, my CFO was interested in the savings. And what I always love to chant is a recent study states that in industry standard savings from utilizing cooperative procurement is between 5 and 15%. So if Orange County with a contract spend of over $2 billion can just save 1%, that's $20 million savings. So that gets them. And then the procurement departments and staff, I leverage on all the efficiencies of collaborative and cooperative purchasing. You won't have to go find your 35 evaluation panel members this year, things like that, like Mike mentioned, all the efficiencies and lack of staff and resources. So yeah, that was a great point, Mike.
Yeah, I love that. I think you both covered a lot of ground there in terms of why why really most procurement teams should be thinking about how cooperative purchasing fits into their overall purchasing strategy. And Mike, I think you made a great case also for, how this can be really beneficial for smaller entities that might not have that purchasing power and the talent in terms of staff and numbers of people out there looking for or working on different bids or different procurements that are coming through. So,
and Becca, yeah. You got me, and Maria, you both got me thinking. The other part of this is like, even as a large entity, sometimes you don't have, quote, the power to negotiate with larger vendors. I mean, but once you get in a cooperative, it changes the whole complexion of the discussion about getting particular terms and conditions, and whether, because their risk to reward ratio changes for the supplier. It's big paper, they like it, there's a lot of spend, they're going to change their, they're thinking about how they negotiate with you. So just to put a finer point on what Maria and you have just said.
Perfect. Well, I think with that, let's get into our sort of main topic here. So one of the core benefits that we definitely heard both of you talk about is, advancing your equity goals, meeting those policy goals, and innovating through using cooperative procurement. And we're seeing a lot of agencies start to think about this a lot more when it comes to working with more local and diverse suppliers. Of course, economic impact is a thing that's top of mind, I think, for everyone. But we're hearing more and more that there's a sort of spectrum of goals when it comes to working with local and diverse businesses. It may be more aspirational. There are some agencies that have really clear set metrics about doing this. And so I think the tactics that we're going to dig into today are hopefully going to be useful for folks, no matter where you're coming from on that spectrum, and no matter where you're coming from in terms of a large state or huge county, or if you're coming from a really small agency or school district or even universities. So this is hopefully going to be useful for everyone, no matter sort of what background you're coming from. All right, so Maria, we already know that Orange County benefits from using cooperative contracts, but can you share a little bit more about what the experience for your departments has been when it comes to working with more small and diverse businesses on these contracts, both historically and maybe if it's shifted recently, what that looks like?
Yeah, so historically, trying to use a collaborative or cooperative contracts, you kind of almost had to throw out the opportunity to support local and small business. It was kind of like larger national scale cooperatives in our in Orange County. So the experience was just going on a kind of a goose chase, right? So you're just kind of like, the organizations that have these cooperative contracts, you kind of search one by one, various databases, then you start calling your cities that you've heard, they have the similar IT solution that we're looking for. I wonder if they have piggybackable language in their contract. So you're just kind of cold calling all these people. At some point, you ask the vendor, hey, do you have any government contracts or cooperative contracts? So it really was kind of a wild goose chase. And for those who haven't really become comfortable with utilizing CoProcure, they're still on that wild goose chase. And at some point, they just kind of give up and solicit, right? And I think that there's so much value in having this one-stop shop searchable solution. But even further than that, I'm able to search locally and support that as well. Because like I said previously, if you're going to use a collaborative or cooperative, you just kind of throw that out the door. I'm not going to focus on that on this one. I'm just looking for an existing contract I can piggyback on. Now I have the best of both worlds. I can search those contracts very easily, and I can filter down by the various diversity, local, small business, diverse businesses. So, it almost seems like a dream.
Yeah. And it's great to hear you say that. One of the very first things, actually, I think right around the time I was joining CoProcure was actually when our diversity filters launched. And so for context, again, if you're not familiar here, when you search on CoProcure, and we'll show this a little bit later, but you can search for any type of product or service, and then you can use diversity filters to actually identify small and diverse businesses that are already awarded on those contracts. And so it's been really fun to see how to make that easier for folks, how to reduce the number of websites that you're having to go to, not having to look through certification databases and compare that to the contracts that you're finding on different other websites. Mike, I'm curious, you've been working on a lot of this stuff for a long time too. Was that pretty similar to what your experience was as well?
Yes, yeah, exactly. The way typically I'd approach it would I'd go out and I would look for so I'd either go to the supplier or I would go on the web and just search a bunch of cooperatives, which was laborious at best. And going to the
Right.
supplier always made me feel a little vulnerable because I'm saying, what kind of paper are you holding here? That they usually, typically, suppliers may carry three or four cooperative pieces of paper, and some have more advantages for T's and C's. So I love this.
Yeah. Maria, we saw an Orange County department recently discover a supplier on CoProcure that was a diverse business, and it was John Wayne Airport. Do you think you could share a little bit more about what that's just that example that happened recently?
Yeah, John Wayne Airport discovered a tips contract for airport furniture on CoProcure, and this person at John Wayne Airport had just literally, it was probably her first time searching CoProcure, and she was ecstatic because not only did she find a cooperative, it was also was a diverse small local supplier. So she was able to kind of meet both of those goals. It was not a cooperative that in Orange County, we have a list of pre-approved cooperatives that our buyers, 250 buyers, can utilize. This was not one of our pre-existing approvals, but they came and got that approval, in a day. And we were able to research and add that cooperative to our list very quickly. These things could take months to research and identify that there's a new existing cooperative. But with this, Monica brought it to our attention. We approved it in a day. We have a new pre-approved co-op. She has a contract that she can easily utilize. We've met our diversity goals, and it was just a total win for everyone.
Yeah, man, not to toot our own horn, but that does sound pretty good. So I think that's exciting too, and you got another goal of CoProcure, which is also just to increase kind of visibility for all kinds of different contracts. So it's great to hear that, you guys were able to utilize a tips contract. It was with a diverse supplier. It met your purchasing need. And, again, that was really the goal of launching those diversity filters, is just to make it easy and to kind of take away that feeling of having to go out to bid to work with local and diverse or use the cooperative contract. And so, today on CoProcure, you can actually discover over 15,000 small and diverse businesses that are already awarded on active cooperative contracts that could be used today. Okay, so that feels like some low-hanging fruit that hopefully is helpful for everyone, no matter what agency you're coming from, no matter what you're looking for. Being able to search for everything in one place and quickly identify, who those local, diverse, and small businesses are, hopefully is a tool to put in that toolbox. Let's get into our next tactic here. So this is pushing to have local and diverse businesses included when you work with a national cooperative or maybe a large national vendor. Mike, you have some time you spent some time working with NASPO. So I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about your experience there and what you saw sort of NASPO doing to encourage or allow more agencies to work with local and diverse businesses when leveraging their national cooperative contracts.
Oh, thank you, Becca. Yes, NASPO is the National Association of State Procurement Officials, and each state chief procurement officer serves on a board there. And an arm of NASPO is NASPO Value Point, which is the cooperative arm of NASPO. And what happens is states do collectively solicitations together. I think right now they have about 64 portfolios in that cooperative procurement. It's a lead state model, which it can be different. Maria would do a lead county model. There's just different models. So at a high level, all the state CPOs get together and they decide they're going to do a solicitation. And then all the states do an intent to participate. That meets their usually their cooperative legal status to be part of that solicitation. Mm-hmm. And then we let the solicitation and award it to vendors. Ultimately, the end is a master agreement award by the lead state. And under that master agreement is a thing called a participating addendum for each state that wants to be part of this agreement. That participating addendum allows the states to put in their diversity initiatives. or any T's and C's they would like. And those are dependent upon, at a participating addendum level, those are dependent upon the supplier agreeing to engage and the state putting those initiatives in. When I ran the Northeast Regional National Value Point education component, most of the eastern states would slide in diversity initiatives. I don't want to name them, put them on the spot, but they would put those diversity initiatives in their participating addendum on a master agreement because they're very strong. These eastern states are very strong in diversity and passionate. So that's kind of how you do it. You have a master agreement by a lead state, participating addendums by states that want to be part of it. And in that participating addendum, which is a very simple one-page document, the state can put in their diversity initiatives or any other specific T's and C's, because it would be problematic if every state had to comply with another state's set of terms and conditions. So that's why we developed the subordinate and subordinate model. More than you want to know.
No, I think that's really helpful to understand. And obviously we're talking about one national purchasing cooperative here, which is NASPO Value Point, and this is the structure that NASPO uses. But it sounds to me like there's a great opportunity for states here to kind of lead the way and set some of those priorities by including that within the T's and C's when they create that purchasing addendum. Is that right, Mike?
I would say yes, a participating addendum. I think at a very basic level is that whatever cooperative you're using, and I don't have experience with too many of them. We do have in the state of Maine some agreements with other large national cooperatives, but if you can negotiate with the supplier, your business diversity initiatives, I think the instrument is less important. And I think the national cooperatives would support you. They'll probably come at me at a conference for saying that, but really, I can see it's quite possible, because it's a fluid instrument. You have a master agreement, and every entity is different. So I would imagine they all have, ways of compensating for that.
Yeah, I think that's something that we've heard from a lot of agencies, and certainly sessions that I've tuned into for previous NIGP forum conferences. It's that you always have the ability to negotiate. So, going to the cooperative or going to the supplier and saying, "Hey, here's what we're trying to accomplish," is something that you can always do. The worst they can say is no, and then you can, have that conversation with a couple of different ones as well. So Mike, I think there's a couple of key things too, though, that when you and I were kind of getting ready for this session that we talked about in terms of recommendations for the folks that are listening in when it comes to finding out how they can work with small and diverse businesses on cooperatives. So you have some recommendations about what to look for within contract documents when to help sort of identify whether or not the supplier, the lead agency, or the co-op has kind of created flexibility around this. I can remind you of what those are if you need me to.
If you would, I just spoke about the master agreement and participating addendum structure, which allows you to customize your own type of terms and conditions. Sans that, if you did not have that and you were working with another cooperative, it would simply be to go to that cooperative and talk to the agreement administrator and ask, what are the bounds with which you can modify the contract or piggyback on that contract. And the second thing I would say is you need to check with your legal team to make sure that if you're new to the public procurement process and cooperatives, you want to check with your legal. This is a little tangential, but I thought of it when I thought of Maria. And political subdivisions and municipalities and smaller municipalities, when I was working for Value Point, when they started doing cooperatives, they needed a resolution from their guiding committee, whatever you call it, select person, etc. So if you're just getting into the construct of a cooperative agreement, you really want to, and doing a cooperative agreement for a small town, you need to get a resolution from your town leaders to say that you can engage in cooperative agreements. It's really the background. That was the best experience I took from working with smaller entities. Got off topic there, Becca. Let's go.
It's okay. It's a fun little nugget of just getting,
Yeah.
you tune in, you never know exactly what you're going to learn, or hopefully you know exactly what you're going to learn, but you get some additional little fun tidbits in there too.
Mike didn't take his attention deficit stuff today. It's okay. It's all problem. It's fine.
Cool. So, I think to recap kind of what we just talked about there, a couple different things. One, you should always be asking about flexibility to add your own terms and conditions to when you're using a contract. And I think, Mike, we can also take a look at the original RFP to see if there's any language in there that allows for some of that flexibility that's been set by the lead agency to begin with. So if, whether it's the lead agency that's created the contract, the national cooperative that's created the contract, both can be approached to ask, what can be done to maybe work with more local and diverse suppliers.
Becca, along those lines, if you know somebody doing a solicitation that's a large entity, and you're interested in that as a procurement authority, you could ask them to put your piggyback language in or something. Sometimes they don't think about it. For the state, we've had entities ask us to do that. They wanted to be part of that, or they weren't initially a part of the initial solicitation. The contract was being developed, things of that nature. So even if you want to get involved at the solicitation level, that's a great opportunity.
Great. Thanks, Mike. All right. So the final tactic that we want to dig into here is the benefit of adding cooperative language to your collaborative contracts and publishing those contracts in order to see some of those benefits for local and diverse businesses. Maria, we started our conversation by talking about the Procurement Alliance, and Orange County was CoProcure's very first partner to add our research technology to the Procurement Alliance website with the goal of sharing your Orange County contracts, boosting collaboration in the region, and supporting more local and diverse businesses. So I'd love to just talk through that a little bit more. Can you share a little bit more about why this was a goal of yours, and why you have sort of taken the approach that you have here?
Yeah, so like I said, my initial goal was just to get the Alliance kicked off, collaborating with our 34 cities, sharing contracts, eliminating duplication of efforts. I did not foresee all of the other benefits that were going to come. We started out, like I said, creating standardized cooperative and collaborative language for our solicitations and contracts. We've got our contracts published on CoProcure. We've launched our Alliance. Now what we've realized is we can search contracts by our diversity requirements. So here in Orange County, we have a lot of local preference policies. We have some other diversity policies in place. So by enabling us to search for those contracts specifically, whether it's in Orange County or also another huge benefit is within the state. The state has a lot of diversity requirements that we are obligated to utilize if we're utilizing their funding. So by being able to search for that, there's a lot of question on state and federal funding contracts. Can we even use collaboratives? Can we even use cooperatives? So that has been, this tool has been able to allow us to get over that hump. Oh, this is a state funded contract, I can't use a collaborative. That's not true. And by having these features where you can filter down to those various diversity
credentials,
categories. Yeah. It has helped us there. There's also all these other benefits we've seen. We can now report on those things. We were unable to report on any of that previously. So now we can report to our Board of Supervisors those contracts that we have established, meeting those various criteria. And this tool has also allowed us to create the county's first contract repository. I was not even able to share my contracts amongst my 24 departments previously. So these are all benefits that we've realized without them being our main goals of establishing this tool. In taking that even further, when we shared our contracts, there's full transparencies with all of our contracts publicly. We received a PRA, and previously, I had to go to one of my 25 departments, to those buyers, have them send me that file. Now I can just send the requester the link to CoProcure, to our CoProcure platform, and they can search for it themselves. I mean, that is a huge savings if you have experience with Public Records Act and FOIA requests. So, I mean, I can go on and on about the benefits. Our local suppliers they can't even believe that we're able to do this. They're contacting us, and asking us to share with other entities our link to CoProcure. It's just really kind of made the whole community smaller regionally, and we're able to share a lot more information, and it's all readily available.
Yeah, it's been really incredible to see, I think, kind of the quick and early sort of response to sharing just Orange County's contracts. Because of course your departments and your team are looking for, local and diverse businesses to work with, and then you're making it now easier for all of the entities within the Procurement Alliance, but also now entities across the country to find those contracts and potentially work with those same suppliers by publishing them. And we've seen, like I said, a lot of really early success. We've seen over 400 unique searches that come directly from the embedded search bar on the Procurement Alliance page, and we're seeing more than 11 Orange County departments and 10 agencies within the Alliance regularly use that embed to search for active cooperative contracts that they can use. It's also really benefited agencies across the country. And given a lot of visibility to Orange County contracts. Maria, I think we shared some stats with you, but I wanted to see if you wanted to share a little bit more about those in terms of the visibility that Orange County contracts have now gained by publishing them and making them more accessible sort of out in the world.
Yeah, and I think just to start it out by reminding everyone, we just launched, and this is one quarter of data. So this did not exist in prior to 3 months ago, Becca. So,
right.
So that makes this data even more incredible, because we've had more than 250 page views of OC contracts, and over 100 of those have been outside of my Orange County community. So, I mean, the success and visibility to our contracts has been more than we could have ever anticipated. It's been a great success.
Yeah, and so I think this is a time where I want to share my screen here and just give everybody an example of one of the things that we've seen with an Orange County contract in particular, and also give some context on all these things that we've been talking about with CoProcure and sort of identifying, cooperative contracts that you can use from local and diverse suppliers. So, I'm sharing my screen here, and you can see CoProcure's homepage. And hopefully this is pretty straightforward. It looks like a search tool that hopefully you've used before. Right at the top of the page, we can go ahead and just type in what we're searching for. So the example I want to share with you all is paper recycling services. I've dropped in a zip code. I think this is for Stanton, California, which is within Orange County. And we just go ahead and we click search. And what we're going to pull in on our search results are strong contract matches for paper recycling. And we can see that Orange County's contract is actually one of the first ones that pops up, because I'm searching from within the county. But we can also see, it looks like there's an Omnia contract here for office supplies and services, a TIPS contract. We've got a contract from GSA, which is paper recycling signs. So it looks like we're pulling in a lot of different contracts that could support paper recycling services. Those diversity filters live right at the top of the page here. So if we go ahead and look for any diverse supplier that's already been awarded on these contracts, now we can see again from this Orange County contract that a small business has been awarded this contract. And when we click view contract, we can see more information that will help start that due diligence process. So contract number and expiration date are listed right at the top of the page. You can view contract documents. So we have all the signed contracts for Orange County here, and you can view these within a PDF viewer right on the site. My computer is taking just a minute to load, but here is the document. So everything is easy to view right here. Nothing needs to be downloaded. And then actually, if this looks good, in the case, this is a real life example where someone came, they searched for paper recycling services, they found Orange County's contract, and then they actually got in touch with Kevin on your team, Maria, to get additional contract documents. And then, we were able to see support for Shadowhawk, which is a small business that's based in Orange County. So it's been really exciting to see how adding more of that local data really is driving more support for local and diverse businesses, both within Orange County, but also across the country. I think this search came from somebody that was in Virginia. So pretty exciting to see. And I'm not sure if you want to share anything else that's happened on your team as a result of kind of fielding requests and just kind of if there's been any additional excitement. But I know you've already shared, that folks.
I did want to mention these buttons: contact supplier, email contract admin, and save contract. Is probably one of the most exciting things to my 250 procurement staff. I mean, historically, you have to search through a collaborative. First, you have to find it, then you have to ask for a copy of it, then you have to review it, find a contact, then realize that contact's no longer there. You don't hear back from them. You have all the information right there for you to be able to move on it. And my procurement staff are ecstatic about that.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. One of the things that I think is helpful to know here is when you hit contact supplier, this is a way to request a quote or confirm specifications. But also, if you had more questions for those suppliers, just in terms of any of the things that we talked about with Mike earlier, you could submit those here. And then email contract admin, this is going to get you in touch with either the lead agency or the co-op. So again, lots of different ways to ask those questions and make sure that we're trying to make it easy for everyone to do everything they need to do in one place. And just kind of reduce the effort of having to look in many different websites, navigate through many different lists, and do this all in one place. So I think the final thing that we want to dig into here before we wrap things up is just the value of educating suppliers. Because, of course, this means nothing if suppliers don't also understand the benefits and understand, how to win more government business and how to leverage cooperative procurement. So Maria and Mike, you both have experience with this. Maria, you hosted a vendor fair earlier this year. I'm curious if you can just share a little bit more about your vendor programs and how they're developing in Orange County.
Yeah, we had a vendor fair recently as our first ever. So it's now going to be an annual fair. We had over 500 attendees. We had, I think, 125 exhibitors. So we had a lot of attendance from our cities, from our local counties, from outside cities, from those local counties. And it was a great networking event. It was great for them to kind of understand where we're going with diversity, with collaboration, with cooperative contracts. So we were able to really get that one-on-one with all of the vendors. We also host a monthly vendor information day, and we have a LinkedIn now, so we share that on our LinkedIn. So we're really expanding our reach amongst the supplier community. What else? Oh, we're now having our second OC Procurement Alliance meeting, so it'll be the second quarter. So we're excited to figure out how we can expand further there. We are also planning a fall-winter vendor open training day where we'll give them tips on how to register to become a vendor, how to respond to solicitations appropriately, how to maximize their scoring, understand how the county scores so they can maximize that, and just various things like that. I think I covered all. Oh, we also go to various trade shows. We go to at least 3 to 5 a month. So various diversity, Asian network, Hispanic network, Business Council, Small Business Association, of course, and those types of organizations. So we're active in the community to kind of help everyone understand all of these goals we have.
Awesome. Love to hear it. Mike, anything that you want to add in terms of how State of Maine works to educate vendors?
We typically educate our vendors through NASPO value points for each meeting. That's where we have the best opportunity to get to all of our suppliers. We also do some work with the PTACs, which all the states use, professional technical assistance. But most of our supplier stuff takes place with the REACH conference. And I think in terms of uptake on cooperatives and how many suppliers, utilize cooperatives, I think it's been 25 to 30 years since the first cooperative came into place. And it's an instrument that most suppliers utilize now. Some carry up to, as I mentioned earlier, probably maybe three different cooperatives, that a paper we call it, that they'll utilize depending upon what state they go to even. And they're very savvy about it. So the environment has matured quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And, we've talked a lot, I think, and kind of been implicit in our conversation is this spirit of collaboration that kind of ripples through the public procurement community. And, we get to see that a lot at CoProcure. And in order to continue to support that, we want to make sure that we make it easy for folks to understand the learnings that we have collected. And so, when it comes to educating suppliers about the value of cooperative procurement, especially small, local, and diverse suppliers, how they, to make sure that they understand how to leverage cooperative procurement to grow their business, CoProcure has actually created a supplier guide on this topic, and it was written by public procurement professionals that are sort of part of our network as well. And so, again, in that value of, to enhance that spirit of collaboration, you can also find that supplier guide on CoProcure.
Rebecca?
Okay. Yeah.
The state of Maine is not near as advanced as Maria is in terms of diversity initiatives, but the governor and our legislature has authorized using ARPA money to help us start our program. We've engaged quite a few suppliers in states around, so we're very excited about that opportunity, and we expect within the next year to have some great offerings.
That's awesome, Mike. We look forward to seeing the developments of that. And I think that kind of brings us to a natural closing point for our conversation. So I want to make sure that we sort of sum up what we've talked about today, because I know we've talked about a lot, and I want to bring it all together as we wrap this up. But hopefully, you're leaving this feeling like you now don't have to choose between ease and convenience of a cooperative and meeting those policy goals. So whether you're looking to use a national purchasing cooperative, or you're looking for a state contract or a contract from a peer agency, there are a lot of ways to capture those time-saving benefits that cooperative procurement allows and meet those equity goals that your organization may have, whether they're aspirational or they're a set goal. So again, those three approaches that we discussed are that when you use cooperative contracts, you can prioritize looking for vendors available on contracts that meet your diversity and equity goals. And hopefully CoProcure search filters can be a resource and a tool that you put into that toolbox in order to help you do that. When you decide to use a cooperative contract and you're working with a large national purchasing cooperative, you can work to add your terms and conditions, your state's terms and conditions, or you can reach out to the lead agency to understand what flexibility there might be to work with local and diverse suppliers. And finally, anytime you award a new contract, there's a huge benefit to adding that cooperative language to your contracts in order to continue to support those small, local, and diverse businesses in your community. And of course, publishing those contracts is really key to making sure that folks can access that information. And if you're interested, CoProcure can also be a resource for helping publish those contracts. And finally, don't forget to educate your local suppliers on how to leverage contracts that you've awarded them to grow your business. So with that, Mike and Maria, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. And to our viewers, I hope you enjoy the rest of the virtual forum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for the NIGP Forum virtual experience. We trust that your day was full of learning, connecting, and networking. Please remember to complete the session surveys for those that you attended. We'll see you tomorrow for the final day of Forum with more sessions and experiences you don't want to miss. Have a great night, and thank you for attending.